1854 and incorporated Wales's first water-powered elevator, or lift. Famous guests over the years have included Sir Winston Churchill, Otto von Bismarck, Napoleon III, Benjamin Disraeli, and William Gladstone. As we've travelled along the seafront, have you noticed the lack of garish and bright facades of these hotels? That's because the owners are required to use a pastel-coloured chart provided by the powerful Mostyn estate when choosing a colour for the outside of the buildings. The Imperial Hotel on our right was once home to the king of our friend, the taxman. The headquarters of the government's Inland Revenue Department was based here during the Second World War in 1940. The Marine Hotel was home to Queen Elizabeth of Romania for 5 weeks in 1890 while she was here recuperating. And we'll hear more about her later in the tour. The large cream hotel coming up on our right was opened in 1860, but was taken over 2 years later by Dr. Henry Thomas, who used it as the Llandudno hydropathic establishment, hence the name Hydro. Dr. Thomas offered a treatment called the compressed air bath, and some of his medicine included belladonna, Spanish fly, and arsenic. On our right is the North Wales Theatre, Venue Cymru, opened in 1994 by His Royal Highness Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales. It has one of the largest stages in the UK and has seating for 1,500 people. A new conference centre completes the project on this site. If visibility is good, you may see the many wind turbines out in the Irish Sea to your left. This is Gwyn Tymor, with 160 turbines 10 miles offshore. It is Wales's largest wind farm, with a capacity to generate 576 megawatts and power for 400,000 homes. And in the distance you can see the Little Orme. It is 141 metres high and a popular sightseeing, walking and hiking site.
Start is back in Wales, but this time in Llandudno.
Just up ahead of us are the paddling pool and lifeboat station. The open space to the right is Bodamon Fields, home to Bodamon Farm Park. We are now arriving at stop number 2 for Bodamon Farm Park. Please check with your brochure for the times of our buses. This is the part of town known as Llandudno. This is a mostly residential area developed after the turn of the 19th century. Notice the brick tile roofs rather than the older grey slate ones. The largest building in Llandudno is St Paul's Church. It was built at the beginning of the last century and is dedicated to the memory of the Duke of Clarence, son of Edward VII and Queen Alexandra, and grandson of Queen Victoria. Many suspected him of being none other than Jack the Ripper, the notorious Victorian murderer. If this is true, it seems rather strange to have his name associated with a church. The Duke of Clarence died in 1892 at the age of just 28.
History.
Ahead of us on our left is Queen's Park, named after Queen Victoria. However, one road down to the left is called Romania Drive, named after another queen, Elizabeth of Romania, who stayed here for several weeks in 1890. She was a noted author of romantic novels, and on a visit to the National Eisteddfod, she was honoured with acceptance into the Gorsedd of the Bards under her pen name Carmen Silva. During her stay, she quickly grew to love the area and was always very complimentary about the standard of hospitality in Wales. Indeed, she was so fond of Wales, she actually learned some Welsh. When she left, she described Llandudno as a beautiful haven of peace. In Welsh, Har, Hafan, Her. And to this very day, that's our town's motto. Through the trees ahead of us to our left, you may see a glimpse of an impressive stone building. Blind Veterans is a national charity that supports blind ex-servicemen and women towards living an independent life. The buildings were originally known as Lady Foresters, a convalescent home for the benefit of workers and their families from the iron industry based in Ironbridge in Shropshire.
The video is taking long.
The Mostyn family name is synonymous with Llandudno, and this area of town is known as Llanrhos, part of the huge Mostyn estate. Coming into view on our left is the pretty little church of St. Hilary. It stands on the site of a 6th century church that is the burial place of members of the Mostyn family. Most of the gravestones in the cemetery are black on the instructions of Lady Augusta back in the 19th century. Lady Augusta was a staunch supporter of the temperance movement, and as such, she despised demon drink. Opposite the church, over to our right, once stood two public houses. Augusta did not want her church to be in such surroundings, so she had them demolished. Instead, she built first a cocoa house, and a little further on, a stone building with a clock, which was once a school. Cocoa houses were popular in the Victorian era, built as a way of showing the temperance need not necessarily deny the social activity offered by pubs and alcohol. In 1898, a new pub, the Links, was built in Llandudno to replace the ones demolished here. To our right is Bryn Lupus Bro. Bryn is the Welsh word for hill, and lupus is the Latin and French word for a wolf. So basically, it means Wolf Hill, named after Hugh Lupus. And in the 11th century, he was the first Norman Earl of Chester, as well as a favourite nephew of William the Conqueror. At the tender age of just 19, he was virtually the King of Cheshire, with lordships over much of North Wales. This brought him great wealth, and a lifestyle not like that of Henry VIII, some centuries later. Perhaps that's why history books often refer to Hugh the Wolf as Hugh the Fat. Setting out from his base in Chester, he then tried to subdue the Welsh, but he didn't do such a good job because the Welsh are still here today to tell the breathtaking. Over to our left, above the trees in the distance, you can see Llandudno's very own Cleopatra's Needle. This obelisk was built simply as a landmark for the area's top hotel, Bodysgallon. You might just be able to see Bodysgallon's grey slate roof and parts of the building. The hotel can be seen more easily from the air, and indeed, some of the hotel's VIP guests arrive by helicopter.
Speaking is telling history. What do you guys think?
Looking ahead of you now, weather permitting, you will see a spectacular view of Llandudno. Llandudno National Park has been a protected landscape for more than 50 years. As we come down the hill, you will catch a sight of Conwy, its castle and quayside, and the River Conwy estuary. Coming up on our right is a pub called the Castle View, formerly called Maggie Murphy's. This name came from a song from the Boer War veterans that were once housed in this area. A copy of the song still hangs in the bar of the pub. Over to our right then, you can see the turrets and battlements of Conwy's famous castle, which was built between 1283 and 1287, and commissioned by King Edward I as he took control of North Wales from the indigenous Welsh. Edward built all of our beautiful castles along the North Wales coast, at Caernarfon, Harlech, Criccieth and Beaumaris. I'll tell you more about the castle as we approach it shortly.
Smells like sea salt water.
This now is Llandudno Junction, where the main railway line from London Euston runs to Holyhead at the far side of the Isle of Anglesey. There, you can catch the ferry to Dublin, the gateway to the Emerald Isle.
Emerald Isle? Oh, we never heard of that before.
Now is Conwy's magnificent castle. Our first view is of the two eastern towers, and between them the massive eastern barbican, one of the entrances to the fortress. Conwy's story begins in 1283, the year that King Edward I completed the conquest of Llandudno, ending the rule of the Welsh princes. Back then, the estimated cost of the castle was £15,000. Required a workforce of more than 15,000 masons and craftsmen from all over England to complete the project. In total, the castle has 8 towers, originally roofed with shingle or slate. Once completed, the castle walls have been limewashed or whitewashed. Some traces of it can still be seen on its Mr. B, standing gleaming white at the base of the dramatic backdrop of the Storthian Mountains. Before we enter Conwy, look to our right and slightly ahead and you'll see the town's quayside. At the end of the terrace of houses closest to us, you might spot a little red house, or then again, you may not, for it is in fact the smallest house in Great Britain, just 72 inches wide and 122 inches high. So here we are entering the medieval town of Conwy. The castle today looks peaceful enough, but slits or arrow loops in the walls could fire missiles down onto anyone attempting to storm the castle. Today, it's quite a different story, and visitors are now warmly welcome. We are now approaching our stop for the town of Conwy. This is where you leave us if you wish to explore the castle or the magnificent town walls, or maybe take a stroll along the quayside. Our buses leave from here every 60 minutes. Please check with our driver for the time of the buses that will take you back into Llandudno. If, however, you are leaving us here, I do hope that you enjoyed the tour, and I'd like to thank you for travelling with City Sightseeing.
15,000 pounds. Yo, that is a lot of money. You Zooksters need to be shocked. You Zooksters should have been shocked when you hear this.
شوف الحالة يا عم محمد الحالة sliding towards you. ما في سيجنال ما شكلها بس لجانا فيني أنا 30 minutes يعني بعدين كنت طافي بدي جانا تصل أعطيه العشاء قهوة كلها أنا في لندن والله في القهوة بقلب الكيس الأسود في بوكسة فيها فناجين قهوة الشغلة بدك بس خطة بالأول في شاي كمان تقدر تشوفهم تطلع السيارة في سهم أكيد كيف كان up to the view إذا لقينا لك ما لقينا suppose this is the last one, so I have to wait.
To their highest point, and they constitute the finest and most completely preserved example left in Britain. Inside the walls, the town was laid out in a grid pattern with space for town square or market square. It's ahead of the bus and it's known as Lancaster Square. As we move along, look to our right. On top of the pillar in Lancaster Square is a statue of Llywelyn the Great, the last great Welsh ruler. Ahead of the bus is a very narrow archway cut through the walls in the 19th century to accommodate the flow of traffic to Bangor and Anglesey. It is very narrow, as you can see, so please, no standing, and keep arms and hands well inside the bus. We are now briefly outside the town walls in Town Ditch Road, so named because of the base of the walls once lay the town ditch, an open sewer where all manner of rubbish was thrown. The walls are about 1,400 yards in length with 21 semicircular towers spaced out along them. Removable wooden platforms would have spanned the gaps between them so that in the event of a hostile attack, the platforms could be removed, creating a break in the circuit, isolating those sections that were under siege. Back inside the town walls now, in Berry Street, once called Burial Street, because here many of the victims of the plague of 1665 were buried. Ahead of the bus, we see once again the magnificent castle. You can just see some of the traces of the limestone wash on the walls, and as we leave Conwy, look to the base of the castle walls at the oblong holes. They were known as latrines, and there are no prizes for guessing what came out of there. Any invader wouldn't dare to attempt to climb up into the castle through those holes. Two bridges. The furthest away from us is a tubular railway bridge, and closest to us is Thomas Telford's Road Bridge. Telford was a brilliant engineer and took great care in the building of this bridge by dipping the metal in linseed oil to preserve it. The bridge opened in 1826. The bridge beyond it carries the main railway line, and it was the first of Robert Stephenson's tubular designs and opened in 1848.
Welcome back, guys. Sorry about how the video ended.
As we cross over this next bridge, take a look down to the left and you can see the vehicles disappearing into the town. Construction of this massive project began in 1986 and it is made up of 6 reinforced concrete prefabricated units. A gasping basin was created and a trench for the sections was excavated. The sections were then lowered slowly, one by one, then linked together. Finally, the trench was then filled in, bringing the riverbed back to its original level. It is Britain's first burst tube tunnel, stretching for 3/4 of a mile and designed to last for 120 years. The single most important role that Conwy played during the Second World War was production of the Millbury Harbour. With the Allies planning the D-Day landings, military chiefs had to work out a way of getting all the necessary equipment from the naval vessels moored out at sea across very shallow beaches to the landing ground. It was decided that a floating harbour was needed to be built in sections and then floated across the channel and assembled on the French beaches. In great secrecy, suitable areas were chosen to build sections of the Millbury Harbour, and Conwy was included. The area used is now the marina, and as a reminder, the local pub is called the Millbury. Many of the town's hotels and boarding houses children in Conwy and the surrounding countryside at the beginning of the war, it was far safer for them here in the countryside rather than in large cities like Liverpool, Manchester or Birmingham. On the left, you can see the boats in the marina. There has been a dock here since the 12th century, but a large dock was built in the 1880s to transport by rail a massive amount of high-quality roofing slate quarried at Blaenau Festiniog, further up the Conwy Valley. In this century, the dock has been transformed into a marina and a spa hotel called The Key after this history. This opened in 2006 and the houses in this area are very well sought after. Nearly 100% mortality in the Black Death of 1349. Here is a hop-on, hop-off stop should you wish to explore the beach and refreshment opportunities available. Please be aware that this trip is a one-way only and you will need to reboard the same side of the road as you get off. On our left is the Conwy estuary. The name Conwy is thought to be pre-Welsh. The river is 27 miles long and rises in the heart of Snowdonia beyond Betws-y-Coed. Despite its normally tranquil appearance, the river conditions are deceptive and at times it can become quite treacherous. Over to our right is a series of rocky grass hills. This is one of the most historic sites in Llandudno, originally the site of a 4th century wooden fortress known as the Vardre. At that time, North Wales was being invaded by Irish warriors. In Golden Trial, the Gododi came south to protect the area from the invaders. This tribe was led by a chieftain known as Conedda, and he established his headquarters here at the strategic vantage point of the Vardre. Without Conedda's intervention, North Wales would almost certainly have fallen to the Irish invaders. His descendants went on to become kings of Gwynedd, and the bloodline can actually be traced to our present monarchy. The Vardre later became the stronghold of King Milgun of Gwynedd, and indeed, this part of North Wales appears to have been the capital of Gwynedd at this time. Look slightly over to the left, and in the distance you may be able to see the Isle of Anglesey and Puffin Island, separated from the mainland by the famous Menai Straits. By the shore, you can see Maesty Golf Course, an 18-hole course of championship standard.
Like, that must be a golf course. I wish I could go there one day. What a really by Irish warriors. I am so sorry to hear that.
Llandudno is built on an isthmus, which is basically a finger of land pointing out into the sea, and it has a west shore and a north shore. If you look ahead of you and above the rooftops, you can see the most distinctive landmark in town, the Great Wall, a huge lump of Carboniferous limestone, some 300 million years old. In the 3rd century, the Romans, marching north from their legendary Castra Diva fortress of Cheston, found the wall to be a great source of copper, and some of the copper mines are still here, although no longer used, after the Romans and the Vikings also mined for copper here. Wall is a Viking word meaning sea dragon, sea monster. There are 2 fantastic ways to visit the Great Wall, either on our vintage coach tour around the Marine Drive or open-top mini coach tour, which takes in both the Marine Drive as well as its summit. These both operate daily from the pier bus stop where our tour ends. Llandudno is Wales's largest resort and is very much the product of the Victorian era. It came into existence primarily for tourists during the mid-19th century, although man has left structures here dating from at least 3000 BC. For the last 100 years or so, it's undoubtedly been the queen of the North Wales resorts, with many fascinating reminders of the elegance of the Victorian period. The name Llandudno, how did it come about? Llan is the Welsh name for church or parish. Tudno comes from the name of the 6th century monk Saint Tudno, who founded a church on the Great Wall, bringing Christianity to the area. There is still a church on that site dedicated to Saint Tudno. So basically, Llandudno means the parish of Tudno. This area was home to a Mr. Charles Pepper. He came to fame as the designer of the Royal Air Force insignia. There was much conjecture at the time as to the identity of the bird represented on the badge. Many thought it was an eagle, but there was always some doubt. Some years later, Charles Pepper was to assure everyone that it was in fact modelled on a stuffed albatross from the National Museum.
Incredible history.
Near us here once stood the Pen Morfa Hotel, originally a private house built in 1862 for the very Reverend Henry Liddell, Dean of Christ Church in Oxford. Liddell stayed here during college breaks with his family, his retinue of servants, and important and privileged guests. One of Liddell's daughters was called Alice, and this is the Alice on which Lewis Carroll based the famous character in Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. This is the West Shore, a stretch of golden sand overlooking Conway Bay. This is a popular spot for families, water sports enthusiasts, and especially walkers, as the Wales coastal path runs right along the shore. There is a boating lake, children's play area, cafe and toilet facilities for those wishing to alight here. As the bus turns, look down to the little island on our left. This is our bus stop for the West Shore. If you are leaving us here, check with your driver for the time of later buses. The circular glass building here is another relic from Victorian times. It was built as a shelter and waiting room for the tram system that operated here between 1907 and 1956. The trams transported local townsfolk and holiday makers around Llandudno, and it could even travel further afield too, as far east as Colwyn Bay. Much of the original tramway still exists, although modern streets have now largely covered them over.
I've watched a movie called Alice Through the Looking Glass. Not lying, literally as God.
This is the stop for Penderyn Whisky and the Homefront Museum. On our right now is the J.P. Wetherspoon Public House. It stands on the original site of the town's market hall. Later, it became the Palladium Theatre. And if you take a closer look at this splendidly restored and renovated building, you can see how it resembles the famous London Palladium.
Yep.
I do hope you have enjoyed your tour of Llandudno and Connell. Thank you for joining us, and of course, many thanks to our driver. Remember to hold on to your tickets, as they will allow you a discount off any other sightseeing tour, either here in the UK or on any of our tours worldwide. If you are staying with us to continue the tour, we will be departing again very shortly. Diolch yn fawr iawn am dewis City Sightseeing, a gobeithio cywch chi siwrne ddiogel adref. Thank you again for choosing City Sightseeing today, and I wish you